too tall. Okay, it's really loud. Has anyone been watching the NBA Finals? I know the Pacers aren't in it, so I know like for some people it's not as interesting as it was last year when the Pacers were in it. The last game was last night. The Knicks took it 4-1. I am not a basketball fan, have not typically forever in my life been a basketball fan. I like listening to sports shows during the week and kind of hearing what's going on, even for sports I'm not super interested in. And for whatever reason, I decided I wanted to watch the finals this year. And so I sat down and watched almost all the games. And found out I like basketball more than I thought I did. So that's one new piece of information. And really just kind of locked in. I decided I wanted to root for the Spurs, so I was rooting for the Spurs, not the Spurs, the Knicks. I was rooting for the Knicks. Mainly because the Knicks hadn't had a championship in 53 years, and I thought it'd be cool if they got another one. And so I was really kind of just paying attention and looking at these different teams. And I remember this week, I was listening to a guy named Colin Cowherd, and he was kind of talking about this idea of kind of the difference in these two teams. And there's kind of like this weird dichotomy going on between these two teams. You have the Spurs. The Spurs are a very young team, and they have really acquired talent through the draft. So for the last 3 years, they've had a top 5 pick in the draft every year. 2 years ago, they drafted Victor Wembanyama, who is a 7'4". People call him the alien. Like he's just this tall, lanky guy that has like an 8'5" wingspan. Like he's just huge. And some people would argue, even like today, he's only been in the league for 2 years, that he is now the greatest playing player in the league. Like of all the players, he is like the most talented. He's the best player. Most people would agree that he's at least top 3. Like he's just kind of skyrocketed in popularity. I'm not saying everybody would agree, but most people would agree. And so they have this kind of team that's very young, very inexperienced, and is really centered around Wemby and his play. He's kind of the main focus. He's the one that kind of the ball, he's the one that everyone's kind of paying attention to on there on the court. He's a great defensive player. He blocks a lot of shots because he's so tall, and he has such lanky arms. And everything kind of gets focused on him. Then you have the Knicks, and the Knicks haven't had a top 5 pick or even a top 10 pick in the last 8 years, I think is what I looked up. They've not had a top 10 pick since 2020. Sorry, I want to get it right. I finally found out my notes. Almost all of their main players have been acquired either through trades or through acquiring free agents. So Jalen Brunson, their main player, the guy who won MVP for the finals last night, he was acquired through free agency. So their team is just a bunch of misfits that nobody really wanted. They've all played for other teams. The teams didn't want to keep them, and so they ended up trading them to the Knicks, or the Knicks acquired them through free agency. Only one of their kind of main players had they acquired through the draft. So they're a bunch of misfits. And when I was writing this, they were up 3-1, but now last night they won. They've won the finals. And it's just weird. The Spurs are the more talented team. And in fact, if you watch the games, the Spurs win almost the whole time. They're winning basically the entire time. If you look at actual time of possession and like who's winning, the Spurs just way outpace the Knicks. It's always like in the fourth quarter when the Knicks come back from a deficit that they take over and then they win the game. In fact, in the fourth game, the Spurs blew the largest now deficit in NBA Finals history of 29 points. There is no reason the Knicks should be winning this game. Based off how traditional NBA teams have been formed around this idea of like you need like one or two like great players and then you build the rest of the team around them, the Spurs should have won the series. And yet the Knicks won. And I think, being as I've watched the games and kind of seen the way that like the people talk afterwards and listen to the interviews and stuff, I think it really boils down to, for the Spurs, everything goes through Wemby. Wemby has to be great for them to win. If he's not doing his part, if he's not pulling his weight, then it doesn't work. But for the Knicks, there's not really that ego built into the team. Because a lot of them have come through other teams and now they've found their way onto this team. They know what it's like to lose. They've been through hard times. They've been through what it takes for them to come together and to work together. For the first 3 wins of the game, you could basically cite 3 different players as the reason why they won that game. Jalen Brunson's the only player, their kind of star, that you can say like won them essentially 2 games. The other 2 games were won by key plays were made by other players that helped them win. And I think that's how the church is supposed to be. I think a lot of times, I guess maybe that's not exactly, I don't want to say exactly that way. I think some churches do it the Spurs way, and some churches do it the Knicks way. And as friends, we're designed to do it the Knicks way, just so you guys know that off the back. Some churches, they choose elders and pastors to lead the church, and those people are the ones making the decisions. And ultimately, then, they're doing it the Spurs way. They're having 1 or 2 or 3 kind of main people essentially making the decisions, and everything runs through them. But as friends, we don't do it that way. All of us have a say. All of us get to participate in the decision-making process. All of our voices matter. And so we're more like the Knicks. Which means it only works then if we all work together. If at any point one of us decides that, I has to play what they call hero ball, and the one game the Knicks lost, a lot of people blamed Jalen Brunson because he was not passing the ball and playing with what some would call hero ball. He was holding onto the ball himself. When that starts happening, things just don't click right. Things aren't happening the way they're supposed to happen. And so it really takes, for us, especially as friends, this tight-knit unity for the church to succeed. And I think Jesus would agree with that. In fact, I'm very certain Jesus would agree with that. If we go to John chapter 17, I'm kind of setting the stage here. This is the night before Jesus is betrayed. Or this is the night of his betrayal, sorry. And he's off in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's already had the Last Supper with his disciples, and he's gone off to the garden, not the Garden of Gethsemane, but the Mount of Olives. He's gone to the Mount of Olives to pray, and he is there, and he's praying, and he's kind of just moved himself away from the disciples a little bit. It's kind of his last moment of solitude and kind of peace before everything's about to happen. He's going to be moved from the high priest to Herod, to Pilate, to eventually being nailed on a cross. It's kind of his last moment of peace. And he takes time to pray. In the beginning of John 17, he prays for himself. In the middle of John 17, he prays for his disciples. And at the end of John 17, he prays for us. We pick up at verse 20. It says, "My prayer is not for them alone," talking about the disciples. "I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I in you. May they also be in us, that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I and them, and you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am and to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them and will continue to make you known in order that the love you have for me may be in them and that I myself may be in them." And so in Jesus' kind of final moments, his final kind of moment of silence and solitude and kind of peace before everything is about to hit the fan, he takes time to pray for us. And what's the kind of the core concept of his prayer? That we would be unified. And the metaphor, the example he uses is he wants us to be unified the same way that the Father and the Son are unified. He wants our unity to mimic their unity. That's the goal here. That's kind of the thrust of his prayer. Now, I think that originally he's praying for the Big C church. I am not shepherding the Big C Church. I'm only right now the shepherd of Danville Friends Church. So we're going to focus on Danville Friends. I can't bring unity to all of the church. Unfortunately, that's been splintered over years and years. It would take an act of heaven right now for us to come back together as one complete body. That does not mean that we're not still united. It doesn't mean that they're still not our brothers and sisters and things like that. But we're not working with them on a regular basis. We're working with each other. So what does unity look like for Danville Friends Church? To understand what that means, then we need to understand this metaphor, this example that Jesus is using of the unity between the Father and the Son. And I think it can be boiled down into two different things. The first one being shared purpose. I think we can see an example of this in John 14:10. And this is just Jesus speaking. He says, "Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work." Jesus and God were so tightly close to each other that everything that he was doing was what the Father wanted him to do. He made sure that everything he did was in line with the Father. They had a shared purpose, a shared reason for doing things together. And so Jesus made sure everything he did was in line with the Father. At no point does Jesus ever deviate from that. And all the times we read in the Gospels and anything we've seen in history since then, Jesus and God are always in sync. They are always one in that way. Their mission is exactly the same. And they live out that mission perfectly. And so we have shared purpose. We have perfect harmony. John 1:2-3 says, "He was with God in the beginning," he being Jesus. "Through him, Jesus, all things were made, and without him, nothing was made that has been made." Jesus and God from the very beginning have been tied together. We have the Trinity. We have this idea that they are three in one. And I don't fully understand how that works, and I'm not going to sit here and try and explain that right now, unfortunately. I'll probably get it wrong and speak some heresy. That's probably what will happen. Not on purpose, but it'll happen, because I don't fully get it. But somehow they are three distinct persons that are also one God, and they are united. So from the very beginning, they have been in perfect harmony with each other. At no point does one ever raise themselves and the other, except for the one point when Jesus lowers himself to come be on earth, and he does give up some of his divinity to do, not like he's still fully God, but like he gives up some of what makes him God to take on human form and things like that for a short while. But they're always in perfect harmony. There's a reason why throughout Scripture we are always seeing Jesus get away to go and just spend time with the Father. Because he needs it. Because for all eternity before this, he has always been in perfect harmony with the Father. And for a short time period of 33 years, he's in flesh. And so he's seeking that out. He's seeking out that closeness all the time. There's always this perfect harmony between the Father and Son. So this then becomes the standard for our church. Are we living out a shared purpose in perfect harmony? And I'm not going to overcomplicate this sermon. We have a little bit more to go to, but honestly, this sermon, I really wanted to keep this super simple. Because the message is super simple. But it's also extremely, extremely important. We know what unity is. We do. And we all know what's important. But every organization of human beings since the beginning